So thank you very much, Jean. I'm going to hand over to our panelists. Dave, I think it would be great if you could get us started. Dave Lomas, thank you.
Well, I've got here 3 pages of notes that I put together in the last week to talk to you tonight about the Battle of Valentine. And once I got here, I was told by Peter that that wasn't on the card, on the agenda at all. I was to comment on the speaker and education on the waterfront. So I'm going to talk to you about the Battle of Valentine. just for a couple of minutes.
Does that have to do with it?
I'm a retired longshoreman. I've been retired 11 years. I retired in my 45th year in the waterfront. I started on the waterfront in the late 1950s, and it was only a couple of weeks or a month from the time I started on the waterfront where I even knew who all the scabs were in the Union at the time. Because the Battle of Valentine in the ILWU, they hold it very dear, and that's where we get most of our education from, is what happened during the Battle of Valentine. So the Battle of Valentine took place at 1 p.m. on Tuesday, June the 18th, 1935, where a group, depending on which newspaper article you read, between 1,000 and 5,000, I like to say about 1,500 because we've got the pictures and tried to individually count them, but they're about 1,500. Marched from the Longshore Hall, which is still there. It's now a dry cleaner, so at 633 East Hastings Street. They were led by a guy by the name of Mickey O'Rourke. I guess everybody has heard about Mickey O'Rourke. He was a Victoria Cross winner, and he was heading the parade along with the rest of the longshoremen. Bear in mind, at that time, a lot of them were veterans of the First World War, all wearing their medals. And they paraded from the Longshore Hall down to Valentine, and at 1:20 p.m. they arrived at the gates of Valentine Pier, and they were tear gassed, and RCMP and mounted police came out from behind rail cars and attacked the group. Bear in mind, the group was longshoremen who were on strike at that time, their spouses, their children, seamen, other unemployed workers, because at that time there was an unemployed movement in Vancouver, a number of unemployed workers. They were attacked by the police, led by a guy by the name of Foster, who was the appointed as the chief of police by the mayor. And just before they fired the tear gas, Foster, the chief of police, took Mickey O'Rourke and led him away so that he wouldn't be caught in the fray, and they wouldn't get any bad publicity because of it. So we have a number of articles from the paper. I just want to read you quickly one. It's quote, "Groups were fighting in lanes and on the thoroughfares in Dunleavy, Jackson, Princess, Heatley, Hawks, and Campbell Avenues. East and west, the fights continued from Alexander Street to Hastings Street. Policemen on horses galloped through gardens and backyards, and many rioters were seized from porches and doorsteps." We've got pictures of all this stuff here too as well. At 1:20 p.m., tear gas bombs were fired by Royal Canadian Mounted Police over the heads of the crowd. Mounted city and provincial police charged them at full gallop, and foot police swung into action with batons this afternoon when thousands of longshore strikers and sympathizers tried to break through the guard and march onto Valentine Pier. It was the bloodiest hours in waterfront history. The boxcars along the track were filled with cops, police, provincial police at that time, RCMP, city police, and by God, they had 2 machine guns in boxcars all ready to go, but they didn't use them that day. There were 100 supporters treated for injuries. Most of them head injuries, some from the tear gas, from being hit on the head with the mounted police with 3-foot batons. There were 100 treated, 100 of the supporters were treated. They were treated at then Vancouver General Hospital, at St. Paul's Hospital, and the City Morgue, which treated a lot of them that day. Also, there were 44 cops, also treated at the same places. There were, from that day until October 25 of 1935, there were over 500 criminal cases prosecuted, resulting in 148 convictions. In December, 18 longshoremen and seamen were in Ocala, serving sentences ranging from 3 months to 1 year. And one guy got 4 years in lashes. We had a women's auxiliary member charged with assaulting a cop. She was jailed 6 weeks before the trial and then fined $25 to 30 days. She took the 30 days. The strike was called off on December 9th, 1935. Over 800 longshoremen were blackballed, and over 400 of them never ever worked again. They were blackballed off the waterfront. Now the instigation that's mainly used for the strike and the lockout at the Battle of Valentine was a hot cargo declaration by the local union, Vancouver local union, a paper that was loaded in Port Alice by a member union of the longshoremen. That really wasn't the total reason for what happened that day. The intention of the longshoremen were to go down to the ships, and believe it or not, they were going down to the ships and they were going to go on board those ships, which were already scabbed, by the way, by the Shipping Federation, which was the employer. They were going to go down to those ships and they were going to convince those scabs to come off the ships. Now that might sound a little strange to us in this day and age, but it used to work. And they used to do it, and they were pretty successful at doing it. Now, I'm not saying they were all nice when they tried to talk them off the ship, but they did it, and that was their intention. Now, there's another story, and I've probably run out of time because I'm doing what I wasn't supposed to be doing, but there's another story that I like to tell about the Battle of Valentine that I don't think has been told. And that's the story about how the Shipping Federation set up that longshore union in 1935. And what they did was the Shipping Federation used the problems at the time, which was the major unemployment, and it was the same year of the March to Ottawa, earlier in that year, and they used the 1919 Bolshevik Revolution in the Soviet Union to convince the employer community in British Columbia that it was the commies that were responsible for trying to take over the means of production in Vancouver. Now they were pretty successful. What the Shipping Federation did was they set up a meeting in the Vancouver Club on April 18, 1935, and they set up a meeting. They called themselves a group of 66. And those 66, which were all names that we would probably all recognize, were employers of the biggest employers in British Columbia, were all at that meeting. And what they did was they formed a Citizens League and a Citizens Committee. Now they had done that before. They did that when they broke the Union in 1919. They did it when they broke the Union in 1923. The difference in this one was that the mayor of the city of Vancouver, a different mayor then, but the mayor of the city of Vancouver was in that meeting and agreed to set up with the Citizens League what they called police specials. What they did was they hired 200 to 300 unemployed workers, and they trained those workers, paid for by the employers, the waterfront employers. They paid those workers and trained them and armed them some of them, not all of them, but arm them to break the strike that the longshoremen, that they knew that the longshoremen were gonna take in June. Now they started this in May. Now one thing that's a little bit interesting is that Citizens League that were responsible for organizing the police specials and arming police outside of the Vancouver City Police and all the rest of the police. That Citizens League ended up getting themselves involved in politics after that in 1936 and 1937, and they turned into the NPA. That's where the NPA come from the Citizens League. Okay, I guess the point that I've tried to make in the last while in my organization in the ILWU, when I've talked about this Battle of Valentine thing is that the lesson that we have to learn, that we as an organization had to learn from what happened in 1935, is that the employers at that day and age in 1935, using different reasons, would go to any length at all to break our organization. And we knew that, and we wrestled with that year after year in our union. Now we've also, I guess I better hurry up, right? Yeah, okay. Okay. For those that aren't aware, 5 years ago, an organization, a committee in our union formed a group, and we got a monument to the Battle of Valentine and to those people who were injured. And that monument is down here at New Brighton for all of those who haven't seen it and should go down there and see it. And 5 years ago, we unveiled the monument and had a major demonstration, major parade, and developed the educational program through the Battle of Valentine struggle. And the June 18th is coming up again in a few months, and our organization once again, with a 5-year anniversary, it'll be 80 years since the Battle of Valentine, is going to put on another such demonstration. So you'll be hearing about that. That'll be coming pretty quick. So I guess I was supposed to, what I was supposed to do, I run through this because I had lots more than this, believe me. But what I was supposed to do is to talk about how this fits into the education program. And what it's been doing is because of the demonstrations that we had 5 years ago and the one that's coming up, it allows us to get to our membership and get to our membership's meeting and explain to them the real reason why we're in existence and the problems that we had faced in the past, and those kinds of problems could still be around in the future, and those are the things we had to be careful of. So with that, because of some of the discussions we had setting up the monument, I call it the monument down at the park here, we got involved with Peter and his organization and set up this outfit that's dealing with the New Westminster waterfront. And we've been involved in that ever since, and that's going to turn into a really great project. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dave. And next up, Robin Folvik from the Labour Heritage Centre.